How was your experience different from where you grew up in terms of your disability?
Well, I mean, I think the main thing is that my mom, like, this has been a thing my whole life. So my mom is really like, does your ear hurt? Like, you went swimming? Did you wear this? Did you do that? And over there, not that my host mom didn't have the same urgency, but she didn't grow up with me, right? She just met me. So it was a lot of like me having to make sure that I did what I had to do when I was in certain situations, um, which was good. I was 15 at the time, so it was like, you know, and then I could definitely notice that there was less, like my middle school. I'm from Houston, Texas. My middle school that I went to in Houston, like the whole bottom floor was like people with disabilities, and a whole section was like people that were deaf or had some degree of hearing loss. Um, so I grew up to some extent seeing people that were deaf, and like I saw people signing around the street. Um, but that definitely was not a thing where I was in Brazil. I was like literally in the middle of nowhere, like southern Brazil. I never saw a single person sighting, right? I never met a single deaf person. It was never brought up in school or anything like that. Um, Same in India, right? I didn't see anybody, and like it just wasn't brought up, right? We went to schools, you didn't see it around schools, because I remember there'd be posters at my school, in my middle school, of like, or in my middle school we did the thing where for a whole day like nobody talked, so that everybody, they did like that thing. I wouldn't see that happening in the schools that I visited when I was in Brazil or India, right? Stuff like that. I think that was the main difference that I saw.
Did you ever have moments where you weren't getting the accommodations you needed?
Um, I think I got pretty lucky. I don't think that ever happened. Um, because I think at least the main thing that would ever happen was if I'm in like in a really, really big group, right? And not many people, you can't control that necessarily. So no, I think that when there was something to do, people did it for me if it could be done.
Did you learn anything about your disability while you were abroad?
I definitely, when I was in Brazil and I was learning Portuguese, I noticed that I don't think I can lip read. I definitely would not say lip read, but I definitely noticed that like I feel like I do a thing where it's like I know the words that I use in my day-to-day life. I know the language that most people around me use. So I can kind of piece together what most people around me are saying because they're around me so often. Um, and I didn't really realize that I did that until I went to Brazil because now I was like, why is it so hard? Like now I know Portuguese. Like even once I learned Portuguese, I was like, it's still so hard for me to know exactly what people are saying during conversation. And I think it's the fact that like in general, when you're learning a language, your ear has to get used to listening to that language. And on top of that, you have to get used to like the slang that people around you use, the exact type of words that people use. And for me, that's so important because that's kind of how I piece together what the person said in general. um, so I don't think I noticed exactly kind of like the the way that I go about making sure I can hear until I was in a setting where I really, really had to like think actively about, am I understanding this person or am I not understanding this person?